Alright, so we're just continuing on with this bunny. So we have a really good base layer down, just of all of these colours, and now we're just going to go in and start to get a little bit darker. So we're going to make sure that we're going in with our pencil strokes to put in all of this texture. So as you can see, that's like, you can see a lot of like hairs in there, the parting of the hairs and things like that, so we want to be able to try and see that. Doesn't mean we won't sort of blend down again. We can definitely blend down again. Alright, so we want to make sure we have a really sharp pencil for our burnt ochre. And we're just going to go through and start to add in some of these fur lines. So sort of against the direction of the fur. I think I want this to be sharper actually. So down like this. So you just want to try and make sure that you can see the lightness in between your pencil strokes, like you can see sort of in the reference photo. So here is a little bit darker, and there's a little bit of pink in here too. Some of the coral up here. It's a bit of like that blurry browny pink tone. Add some of that going back in. In the direction of the fur. And then up here is like that lighter section, so we'll do a little bit of the cream up here. And then it gets a lot pinker at the top as well. So pink up here, coral, burnt ochre. So just doing some fur lines going back into the fur. And try and space them out a little bit as well, because you want to be able to see the lightness coming through. Starting down here, so down here there's some like little thinner lines, shorter lines even. Going up here. I'm going to use my sandpaper sharpener, wherever that is, over here, because I just want this to be like sharper. I want the lines to be thinner. It's cleaned off. It's better. So you can get sort of sharper lines. Going back into the fur. Here. And we'll just glaze over this really lightly just to darken it down a tiny bit because it's a little bit too cream at the moment, and then we'll add in some coral. And then back to down here. Up here. And we'll just glaze down a little bit of this because it does get darker. And it is more of like a brownie tone on the right hand side, so we're going to have to go through with some of the Van Dyke brown. So the top of the nose is like here, then here, and then this is where the line sort of texture starts. Okay. So we'll sort of stop it like here. And then we need to add in a little bit more of the coral. Add it down a little bit more around here. A little bit more around here. And then it sort of gets really sort of light up in the top left hand corner. Blend that in a little bit. Up here, blend that in a little bit. Up here, there's like a couple of like little furs coming off, like it's not flat up here, so we'll put that in. Okay. And we'll start to just get darker with the Van Dyke brown. Oh damn. So really sharp point. Sharpening it on the sanding block. And then clean it off because mine's really dirty. So we'll go So doing the fur stroke sort of like back into the fur and against the fur. If you do it sort of back into the fur, it sort of gives you the impression that the lighter furs are overlapping the darker sections, which is what we want for this. Up here, and then they go over the top to the right. And you can sort of like section out where you can see these lighter furs. So like, and go next to them sort of thing, so that they sort of stay lighter, if that makes sense. And just really sort of light strokes. You're not going in like really heavy or anything. And the lighter, the further that we get over to the left, the lighter we need to go, because it's sort of darker here, lighter here. This is where the shadow is. This is where the sun is beaming down on this glorious bunny. I feel like we need a little bit more of the coral in there too. And what we can even do is just go really lightly on the side with the Van Dyke brown, and that will help to darken this section. Up around here. And then do some little lines going back into this white. Not sharp enough. Sharpening that. Cleaning it off. Into the lighter section. And then we'll start to get darker with some of the coral, which is a pink colour. There's some of these areas up here that are blended a little bit more. So we'll mix a little bit of that with the burnt ochre. And then more burnt ochre. Up here. And it's like sort of blurry at the top as well, so you don't want to be able to see all of these individual fur strokes up here like we can down here, which makes it tricky. So just going in a little bit more with more of the burnt ochre, can't even think. So really sharp point on your pencil is sort of key for this sort of detail. And I'm sort of doing like a couple like together so that they're thicker, because it's a cartoon. It's not, you know, like when we use when I do fur strokes with colour pencils for like realism, you know, you do the fur strokes like really close together or and really far apart, and you'd really cross them over each other. You know, there'd be a whole different technique. But with this, it's like you want to make it look like painterly and soft and fluffy and fake rather than sort of like real fur. But I also want it to match like the fox that I've done as well. So if you've seen a fox I did previously, he's got sort of like a different style. Like it's definitely a cartoon, but it looks a little bit more like fur rather than not. So then down here, I just need to blend this in a little bit and also add some of the coral in there because it's very pink. A little bit more of this. And this bit goes like that. Like that. And then just sort of softly blend it out. Coral. Pretty pink in the middle, so remember to put your pencil on the side nice and light. So the more that you sort of hold your pencil on the side, the more that like the less sort of lead is going to be going down on the page. And we just don't want, we want to do really gradual layers, not really thick layers, fast layers. So it's just gradually building it up rather than going in with a really hard pressure, which is the way that I do it, I guess. Let's go Van Dyke Brown again, nice and sharp point. Blending it down a bit. So the further we get over here, the lighter we sort of put these lines down, because we just want it to be sort of some definition. We don't want it to be really dark. Let's get real though, like fur's one of the hardest things to do. I think like people focus on like doing eyes and noses and open mouths and stuff, but fur's just something else. Let's go with the black. Up here there's like a darker eyebrow, and it just goes like this, like it's the same eyebrow as this, like that, and then a couple little lines next to it. Down here we can go as well with the Cold Warm Grey 2. Van Dyke Brown. Oh, my camera turns off. And then So, getting a little bit darker. And then blending it down. Do some lines going back in, and then some lines coming out again. Okay, and then we'll go back over with the burnt ochre and just darken some of these areas because it still needs, you know, to be saturated a little bit more. But I don't want to go over and do like a full, really strong blend, like just scribble over everything, because I think I'll lose a lot of the definition. And then it wouldn't be hard just to go back through and put it all in again, but, you know, why are we making more work for ourselves? So just spacing these out really, really far so that you can see that light coming through. We can also add in some of the white after, which will help bring out the lightness. Up here it's very pink as well, so we'll add some of that, and then some of the coral, cream, and then burnt ochre. Van Dyke brown. Some lines going back into this section to make it look like that white is overlapping the brown. Here, so this goes in quite far, so we'll bring this in. Blend it out nice and softly, and then here need a little bit more of the warm grey too. And even with the white you can blend it down. Okay, so what we might do is sharpen the white. Nice sharp point. And these are quite soft, so you don't want to go in with too hard a pressure with a really sharp point because it's just going to crack on you. So here, going back in, adding some of these white highlights. Especially up here. Whoa, see? They'll just break. So adding some of these whiter bits. So trying to, like, you can pick where you can already see the lightness. So there's like some whiter sections here, and just exaggerate them with the white pencil. Over here. Couple of lighter bits up here. Okay. So what we can continue to do is go over with the Van Dyke Brown. So we just need to get a little bit darker over here, blending that down. Just really gently. Sharper points going into that white. And there's some lighter bits going up into this. So here it sort of goes into up here, blending a little bit more with the burnt ochre. Doing a couple more fur lines going into this section. Go with more white. Van Dyke Brown. It's too dark. Okay, and then just add some of these bits here. It's kind of like fluffy bits overlapping. Okay, a couple of little light bits going into this white section. Van Dyke Brown. All right, so how are we looking? Not bad. I think it looks kind of funny just because we don't have like the context of the whole thing. So once we complete the whole thing, you'll be able to tell that the light source is coming this way, so its head won't look as strange. Hopefully. Let's just hope. Van Dyke Brown. burnt ochre. Alright, I think we're getting to a point where we need to move on. Oh yes. Maybe a little bit darker down here. We'll go in with the white, just really gently, and blend this. Blend this down here. Maybe even a tiny bit of Van Dyke Brown just on the side. Let's blend that with some water. So wet it and then just dry it off. Like, you need to really make sure it's not too wet. Dry it off. Going in with a little bit more of the white. So just like pick where you can see in between the darker sections and just do little lights up in there. Little lights, little lines. Burnt ochre. Alright, so ooh. Let's just bring this section in just a little bit. Like that. Alright, so what we need to do now is move on to the face, but I think we'll leave it there tonight because I have a show to watch. But yeah, this will be a full tutorial on my Patreon channel for anyone who wants to access it once it's completed. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of this one. Thanks, guys.